Hi, my name is Andrew Fredgis, and now I'll be going on with the continuation of the basics of flows, and we'll be looking into the different aspects of a flow, what you use within them. So on my screen you can see here, I've got a record triggered flow I'm going to use today. I'm using the auto layout feature as well, so it may look a little bit different to yours if you're not using it. So first things you're going to see is your action, right? So the first thing here is your trigger. In most scenarios, you'll need a trigger to identify what records you're going to use within it. Otherwise, you're going to need a starting element or a schedule for a schedule triggered flow. You need to set the time and day for it. So in my trigger, I can then go set it up. I can choose the objects I want, etc. from there. On the left-hand side here, this is where you manage your resources. So if you want to store particular values that you want to then use later on in the flow, and reference them. Maybe it's a consistent value, maybe it's even a value via lookup or something. You can use this by creating resources. So if we go in here, we're going to create a new resource. You can see there are different types: a variable, constant, formula, text template, and a stage. The variable resource allows you to capture values inside this resource. A variable also is a value that can be changed throughout the flow. Now the next one here is a constant. So this is, as the name suggests, is storing a consistent value that doesn't change within the flow. So maybe I want to store a particular value such as a country value. So if I want to reference the word Australia later on, I can. A formula allows you to use the Salesforce formula function to then determine or manipulate particular field values. So if I wanted to manipulate a date, say I wanted the date 2 years from today, I could then write a formula for that, and it will store the value 2 years from today in that formula field. A text template allows you to store text that can be changed and used throughout the flow. To format the text within it, you can use HTML tags as well. Stage represents the user's progress throughout the flow. So to identify which stages are relevant to the user throughout the flow, assign the stages to the stage system variable. So this allows you to track where users are at within the flow. Other than resources, some key basics you need to understand are the different types of elements. Now by going to that little plus button I just did there, it launches this element interaction aspect. There are different elements available based on the different types of flow you're using. So for example, in a screen flow, you have the element screen, which is applicable there. Whereas on a record triggered flow, you don't have access to a screen. So looking at some of the basic ones, we have down here is your data manipulation based ones. So you've got your create records, update records, get records. Now this is very useful and handy for identifying records that you need to use in your flow. If it's not records that started the flow, so for example, this is a record triggered flow and we put it on the account, but we actually want the account team member records. We use the get records method to do that. And finally, you can also delete records as well. Now, within a flow, depending how complex it is, you can be using one of these, multiple of these, or all of these, either once or multiple times. Then we go up to our logical ones. Now these are very powerful in determining the complexity of your flow as well as managing and combining different flows into one. You have your assignment variables, so this allows you to set different variables. These are very commonly used in conjunction with the loop. Right? The loop allows you to go through an iteration and loop through, as the name suggests. Most commonly if you have what's called a record set, that is a collection of different records, then you can loop through them one by one. The assignment variable is then used to update the data within those sets, the record collection sets or whatever it may be. You can even use assignment to set variable values for records within your flow. So if it's a scheduled flow, you can use the assignment to update it, right? Decision. This is a very good one for logic. This is a decision tree. This allows you to build out complex decision trees and to then put your paths for each and conditions, and then put your flow in a very complex way to have different actions based on different pathways. Then you also have actions. This is a fairly new concept, and this is allowing you to reference an action outside of the flow. So for example, the ability to send an email during the flow.